Would the meeting of chapter 14, 17 please come to order? Pat, you want to do the devotional, please? This is our new chaplain, Pat Chester.
Do you want me to come up there?
She agreed to do this at the last meeting after Lil, our long-term chaplain, passed away.
Well, I happen to think the Lord has a sense of humor, so I will try to add a little humor from time to time in all my devotionals. Today I'm going to tell you the story about the horse and the goat. There was a farmer who had a horse and a goat. One day the horse became ill and the farmer called the vet. And the vet said that he had a virus and that he would give him this medicine for 3 days, and if it didn't do any good, they would have to put him down. So the goat, when the vet left, the goat said, "Oh, buddy, you got to get better. Come on, we got to get better." He didn't. The next day, the vet came and gave him the shot. He still didn't get, and the goat kept, "Oh, you got to get up. Come on, get up. You got to get going." Didn't do anything. So the next day, the vet came. He says, "Unfortunately, we're going to have to put him down tomorrow." And so the goat, when he left, the goat went, "Oh, buddy, come on, I'll help you, I'll help you. If you don't, you're going to die, come on." And he kept on, and he kept trying to help him, and he finally got him up, and he said, "That's the way, you can do it, you can do it." And so he finally got him up, and he says, "Now stand up, now walk." And then he said, "Now run." And he started running, and he ran all over the pasture. And the farmer came out and he said, "Oh, it's a miracle. My horse has been healed. We'll have a party. Let's kill the goat." Now, the moral to this story is this often happens in clubs, in workplaces, in churches, where nobody truly knows which person actually deserved the merit of success, or who actually contributed the necessary support to make things happen. Remember, learning to live without recognition is a skill. So if anybody ever tells you that your work is unprofessional, remember, amateurs built the ark and all species were saved. Professionals built the Titanic and they all died. May we pray. Lord, help us all to be encouragers in everything we do. We thank you for this group that's here today, and we ask you to bless the food that you've furnished us through your bounty. In Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. I like that. We all need some humor every now and then. Benny, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Since Willie's not here today, let's stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm so excited to see this nice crowd today. It's nice to have a room full of people and all. I want to say a special welcome to a couple of people. Our newest member, Sheila Fairclough. Glad to have you here. Nancy, that's another one of Nancy's recruits and all. But we're certainly glad to have you. She's retired from Robbins Air Force Base and all. And then we have Bernice Byrne. Bernice is retired from IRS. I thought maybe she was a new retiree, but she said she retired in 2010. But this is funny on this. I was at Arts Council meeting the other night, and we were talking about we needed some new members on the board and all, and Thomas said, "Well, I may know somebody." He said, "A friend of mine retired from the IRS, and she's moved to Hawkinsville." And he gave us a name, and I wrote myself a note, and I said, when I get home, I've got to write her a letter inviting her to join NARFE. Well, I didn't have to do that because she had hope. knew each other from, I won't say how many years ago, but in the telephone company. So, Bernice, we're glad to have you here, and we hope you see your smiling face again. And I told her that she had good taste because she walked in, and I looked at the skirt she had on. I said, I got a top just like that. So maybe I should have worn it today, and we could have been twins in our outfits today. So welcome, both of you. We're glad to have you, and we're glad to have everybody that's here. And we're glad to have our speaker. No, this isn't Sherry.
Thank you very much.
And, I happened to look at my phone this morning, and there was a message on there. And I thought, that looks like Sherry's number. And it was a voicemail message. And I listened to it, and she said she was not feeling well and that she was going to send Jean Saunders, who is the chaplain that could do just as good as she did. So we'll talk a little more about Jean in a few minutes, but we're glad to also have you here. The minutes of the last meeting, there's some copies on the table. If you've had a chance to look over them, there's probably some errors since I took the minutes the last time, since Nancy was out having a good time in Florida, weren't you, at a horse show? I was at a horse show. So look over these, and do you see any changes that need to be made?
That would have been cheaper to be here.
If not, do I hear a move that the minutes be approved as written? Do I hear a second? Second. All approved say aye. Aye. All opposed, the minutes stand approved as written. I am delighted to have our guest speaker here today. He is Jean Saunders. He's the chaplain at Heart of Georgia Hospice in Warner Robins. Jean, I think you said you've been there 6 years?
6 years.
6 years. And he's a good Methodist. So when I said something about United Methodist Women a while ago, he said, oh, you're Methodist too. But he used to be, back in the 80s, was it?
Right.
He was the youth director at Christ United Methodist Church in Warner Robins.
Right.
So, and that's where our current pastor was preacher at one time. So rather than take up any time of your time, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Just want to say that deduction was allowable before I go any further. Just when you hear someone from the IRS is in the room, you just start.
She was from the investigative unit too.
Former IRS.
Former, okay, well, I'm no longer self-employed, so
You're all being recorded.
Well, I'm grateful to be here. I hate it that Sherry's not feeling well, and no, I cannot do as good as she does, because she just makes you feel like you've just had this big warm hug whenever she goes, and she can talk to somebody about how to do a recipe, and you feel like you've been hugged when she gets through talking. That's just Sherry. She's just a mama at heart and loves people. So I hope I love people too. I was asked to speak about hospice, not specifically about our hospice, but that's part of my journey, so you'll hear pieces of that. And if I keep referencing this, you just have to forgive me, because Sherry said, now don't forget, talk about this and talk about that. Okay, I'm writing as she's talking, I'm writing, and so I will be making sure so that she'll say, did you tell them everything? Yeah, I think I did. So, you know, it's hard to talk about hospice sometimes, because it's kind of like talking about, I hate to use this analogy, no one wants to talk about going to the dentist unless your tooth is hurting, but if your tooth is hurting, you can't wait to get there, because he's the one that can help you get out of pain. And you don't want to hear the words root canal, but you're like, whatever it takes, just fix it. You know, if you've never had real tooth problems, you don't get that, but if you've had a real toothache, you just need relief now. Well, you don't really think about the dentist until you need the dentist. You don't think about anything like that until you need that. And hospice is one of those things. It's sometimes difficult because, you know, if I talk to my children about it, and my children are all grown, and if I start mentioning to them what I do, they quickly want to change the subject. I'm like, you might better be thinking about this thing while you're in your 20s and 30s rather than waiting until you're in your 60s, 70s, and 80s until you start thinking, well, what am I going to do about this? And if you pre-think things, you're prepared for it. If you don't pre-think retirement, then you're going to be really thinking about it when it comes time. So that's kind of like hospice. It's not for everybody, thank the Lord. It's for those that need it. The only reason that you can even be on hospice, and there's so many myths about hospice. Number one, not all hospices are the same. It's like saying, well, you're with hospice, right? Well, I was with, thank you for the way y'all treated me. I was with hospice down in Florida. No, different hospice. There's like Burger King, McDonald's, Arby's. There's all these different branches. It's still fast food, or shall I say hospice. It's still the same thing. But there's many different organizations that are hospice. Most of them are for-profit. I have nothing wrong with for-profit. I like profit. There's an ex-IRS agent in me, so I didn't like it a whole lot, but I did like it some. So I'm not picking on it. But I work with a nonprofit, which means we don't have any investors behind us to make sure we stay solvent. What is it? I'm not number one, I'm number two, I work harder. Well, that's kind of the way we feel. We've got the middle child syndrome going on because we're working really hard without having a set of investors behind us. We try to keep good relations, obviously, with hospitals, nursing homes, the doc's offices, all things like that. We try to keep those good relations going because we don't have a set of investors. But because we're nonprofit, I don't want to say too much about this, but we probably cannot pay what some of the bigger hospices can pay. But that tells me those that work for us, to them it's a mission, it's a calling. Their heart is in it, and that I would never disparage anybody working for any hospice because it is a tough job. For any discipline within hospice, it's a tough job. It is. And everybody who does that, just like anyone who goes in the medical field, not everybody can do that. I don't want to be doing certain aspects in the medical field, even though I play my part in that. But those that work for us, they're all heart. They're just all heart. And I would say that probably for any hospice because it's not the easiest job in the world. Because you're dealing with people at a very specific time in life. The only way you can get on hospice is if the doctor says, and it has to be by a doctor's referral, he looks at you and goes, we see this thing. Let's just call it a thing. Whatever the thing is, we see this thing. And if this thing continues on its natural progression, probably within 6 months, you're probably not going to be here. That is the only way someone is supposed to legally get on hospice, is if the doctor looks at them and goes, they can say, I know you need some help. Let's try to get some help in there for you, or let's try to do this. No. If the doctor says, in my best estimation, we're probably looking at about 6 months or less. He's not doesn't have a magic wand to determine how long someone's going to be here, because the truth is, I know of people that were given hospice care and they lasted for 4 and 5 years. Doesn't mean they weren't appropriate. It doesn't mean that something couldn't surprise them at any minute. It's just that the human will plays a lot in that, how strong someone is. And honestly, the World War II generation surprises us. They surprise us every day. There's just such a strong will to live. There's such a, you just do what you got to do and you keep going. That's just the way they were. That's just the way the generation was. Now, I don't know what the kids today are going to be like when they get to be that. I have no idea. But that will and that strength and that overcoming, living through the depression and going through all that, they're tough. They're just tough. So the doctor can say whatever he wants, and we just get surprised all the time. But that's how someone gets on hospice. The doc has to say, what you have is terminal, 6 months or less. That is not a prescription for Kevorkian or anything like that. And just to dispel another myth, we had a Korean vet walk into our inpatient unit one time, and I was told by the nursing staff, could you please go talk to him? He's really upset because he was having to put his wife in our inpatient unit, which meant that her symptoms were very severe and they needed that level of care to try to deal with her symptoms. Understanding hospice does not fix anything. We're not there to fix it. We're there to help someone through that moment. That's what we're there to do. But I talked to him and I said, well, the nurse told me that you're a bit upset. I said, I understand. How long you been married? Talked to him for a few minutes, and that wasn't what he was upset about with his wife was sick. He felt like he was signing her death sentence by turning her over to hospice. And I went, well, why do you feel that? He says, well, we know what y'all do here. Please enlighten me. I mean, I was very genuine, you know. I tried not to be sarcastic, but I'm thinking, well, please tell me what we do here. Well, we know y'all help them over. And I went, well, we do help people. Well, you know what I mean. I said, no, I don't. Please help me understand. He says, we know that y'all use morphine. And here again, a Korean War veteran, when is morphine used on the field? When someone's about to check out and they want them to check out without pain. There's nothing the medic on the field can do. And so veterans of World War II and Korea specifically, they look at that and morphine is almost like, oh, dear God, keep it away from me because that means I'm going to die. No, I don't think that means you're going to die. That's almost like saying, don't buy a Ford because, you know, the last guy I knew that bought a Ford, didn't work out so well for him. Well, no, the Ford didn't do it. Something else did it. It just so happened that he was driving the Ford. Well, you know, that's kind of like hospice. Someone says, well, we know what happens when people go on hospice. And I ask people, well, tell me what happens. Well, they die. Well, I don't think hospice had anything to do with that because typically when people come on our service, we've seen it many times. We have the nurse go out to check on them on a regular basis. They're not having to get out of their house to go to the doctor. The nurse comes, the social worker comes, the CNA comes. You know, I'll show up, you know, and they see me, and I walked to this one guy's room one time, and his wife said, honey, the chaplain's here, and his eyes got huge. I went, oh, no, I'm just here to see how you're doing. No, don't get the wrong impression. I want to see how you're doing today. Are you hurting? You know, what's important to you? What's going on? You know, and but he just thought, oh, dear Lord, they didn't call the preacher. You know, no, that's not what I'm here for. If I'm needed for that, yes, that's what I'm here for. If I'm not needed for that, I'm here to find out how are you doing. Really, what's important to you today? And someone would say, my next meal, or maybe just continuing to breathe in and out. It could be as simple as that. Or they're waiting for me to get through talking so they can go visit with their relatives. And I'm like, look, I'm secondary to this equation. I can back out. If your grandkids are here, please, by all means. You know, so we've got the nurse, the social worker, CNAs, chaplains, bereavement coordinator. Now, here again, we work with a nonprofit. Heart of Georgia Hospice is a nonprofit. We do free bereavement counseling to the entire community. If you know of anyone who's lost someone, they do not have to have been on our service. Just call Heart of Georgia Hospice, 953-5161, and say, I'd like to set up, you know, an appointment with the bereavement coordinator or the counselor, whoever. We'll know who you're talking about. We offer free bereavement to the whole community. For just, you know, come in, set up an appointment. If they're shut in, depending on how far away it is, normally she can go visit someone. We have a grief camp for children that we love. If you know of any kids that have lost anyone between 6 and 16, it's once a year. It's called Camp Wings. Children grieve differently than we do. They do everything differently than we do. They do it in bite-sized pieces. And that's the way they deal with grief too. If you've ever had a grandchild or known of a child that they lost someone really important, they might act one minute like their world's coming apart, and the next minute they're out there swinging on the swing set and just as happy as can be. And you're like, I'm not understanding this. It's because they grieve in little bite-sized pieces. They'll take a bite out of grief, they'll process it, and then they'll go do it as if that doesn't even exist. They'll just it's like, doesn't even exist, never happened. You know, and you might see them a little different, or they might act out. I think we all kind of act out in our own way when we're hurting. They just do it in the more obvious way. We've learned more defense mechanisms to make ourselves look good while we're acting. That's just the joy of growing up. But we minister to these kids. We help them. It's a whole weekend thing. And it's here again, it's free to the community. Robbins Federal last year just really blessed us and gave us a large grant to cover the cost of our camp entirely. Now, we still had others that donated, which we always need the extra because, it's expensive to take care of someone for a whole weekend. But that's one of the things that we do. Another things that we do, respite services. Someone goes on hospice. If you've ever been a caregiver or you've had a relative, someone who's been a caregiver, it is the most exhausting job on the planet. I would say bar none. Because you're so involved and you feel the weight. It's like being a brand new mom and you walk in your own house with that baby and there's not a nurse to ask any questions. There's not an expert in the next room to ask, what do I do when they cry? What do I do when, just do the best you can. But the weight of the world is now on you as a mom because that little child is dependent on you. So it's kind of like that when you're caregiving for someone who's very sick. You think, I don't know anything about this. How am I supposed to, and the weight just settles upon you. Well, see, and that's one of the benefits of hospice, because hospice, you pick up the phone and say, I don't know what's going on. This is what they're doing. This is what I'm seeing. And the nurse will probably say, do you need me to come out? What would you like for me to do? Sometimes just talking someone through. Someone in my own family has died on hospice, and so I know the benefit of being able to pick up the phone in the middle of the night and the voice on the other end did not sound distracted, distressed, or upset that I called them at about 1 o'clock in the morning when they got to get up and go to work tomorrow. They were just like, well, what can I help you with? What can I do? And it was just such a relief to know I'm not walking through this by myself. And see, that is the whole purpose behind hospice. We're not there to actually stop, and I know that sounds strange. We're not there to stop what's going on. If it could have been stopped, the doc would have done that. Our job is to hold the patient's hand and the family's hand and to walk with them as this person takes that journey. And it's a very unique journey. Everyone goes that journey. And I know the family can all be gathered around, but that's when you're really walking that journey. And that's why, to me, faith is so important, because we can only walk so far with someone. And then their family can only walk so far with someone. And then it's just them and God. And they're walking that journey. But we're there to hold their hand so that they are not by themselves. They don't feel by themselves. Hopefully they never are by themselves. Our there is to be a support and a comfort, because the family is primary. Hospice doesn't come in for 24/7. There's no hospice that can come in for 24/7. You don't just go, well, okay, I'm on hospice now. Y'all come do it. That's not what hospice is. What hospice is a support network to the family. I used to hear things when I was growing up. It's like, I didn't take you to raise. And it's like, what was that supposed to mean? That means you work it out, do it yourself. And I don't mean that in a callous way. It's just that phrase goes through my mind sometimes, because people have a myth about, well, if I'm on hospice care, then y'all come in and go do it. No, that's not what we do. Here again, the family's primary. But we try to educate the family. We try to give them the support they need. Let them know that they are not alone. Here again, we got a social worker. We got a chaplain. We have the nurse. We have aides to give some relief to whoever's doing the caregiving. We have respite care. Family needs a break. That's why we have an inpatient unit. Let someone come and be at the inpatient unit. And you know how hard it is to tell your loved one, I am so tired of taking care of you. No, that's not the point. You're not tired of taking care of them. You're just tired, period. The reason you're tired is because I'm staying up night and day taking care of you. But it's not I'm tired of you. I'm just exhausted and fatigued. Well, we have a place, and here again, our social worker and myself, we can come in and help kind of grease the tracks of that conversation so the patient doesn't feel like they're being abandoned. But if you're in pain, you're not really thinking about anybody else's pain. If you're the one that's sick, you're the one facing that diagnosis. You're not really, unfortunately, and that's just the reality of life, you're not thinking about somebody else's pain of caring for you. You're just thinking, if I'm the one going through this, no, Mama, we're all going through it with you. We're all in it together. We're here. So we step in and help some of those conversations happen, because no family wants to say, I'm tired. We really need you take a little break for a few days at the inpatient unit, or let us get the aide to come in and sit with you so we can have an evening together and know what it's like not to have that weight on us. Because the truth is, even if you do take an evening, if you've ever been a caregiver, you're still thinking about what's going on at home. But at least you get out of the house, go buy some groceries. I'm not going to say go to the movies because you wouldn't be interested anyway. Just do something different. Go play cards with some friends. I don't know. But respite services is one of the things we do. Just put someone else in the home so everybody else can kind of check out, because you've got to. You've got to. And I'm going through my checklist. Oh yes, you wanted me to say we do not have a silver bullet for the disease, nor do we have a silver bullet to help push the patient. That's what that Korean veteran thought we were doing. And he finally came to terms with the fact, no, nobody's pushing. Nobody's pushing anybody off a cliff. That is not what hospice is about. Hospice is really, like I said, just holding someone's hand through their own journey until they walk with the Lord. And we have so many people just thank us continually and come back and support us. Here again, we're a nonprofit. We take donations, so people want to support us because they're like, wow, I don't know what I would have done. Other people, you can't even talk hospice because they're like, I can't hear that. Well, you don't need it then, do you? That's okay. That's okay. I'm kind of glad you don't need it because I don't need it, and I'm kind of glad I don't need it. That's a good moment, you know. And some people, we have to tell them, Mrs. So-and-so, we have so enjoyed taking care of you, but you're doing too good. You're graduating. You know, we're going to have to kick you out of our service. And actually, they get quite upset because they like having people coming over just to see them. You know, for once in their life, it's all about them. And I'll tell them that, and you should see the family members smile when I say that. And I go, you know, for once in your life, you want it to be all about you. Well, right now it is. It's all about you. What do you want? If you want banana pudding for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you got it. Get them banana pudding for lunch and breakfast, lunch. You know, that's what we do. What do they want? It's all about them. And then when it's all about them and we're going to tell them, I'm sorry, you're really too healthy to be with us, they're like, what do you mean? You're still going to come over, aren't you? Well, not between 8:30 and 5, I'm not. You know, because that's when I'm getting paid. And so I go where I'm told. Real quick, and I'm going to open it up for a few questions. Asking a preacher to keep it narrow, oh my goodness, that's just, oh golly, because we always have something to say. Even if we don't know what we're talking about, we have something to say. And this is where there is something to talk about. Real quick, the reason I mentioned our disciplines is because we have a team approach. We're not dependent on just the nurse to call the shots. Now, the nurse is the case manager. She's managing the case of each individual patient. But there's the social worker laying eyes on them, then the aide, and then myself. There's different people going in. It's a team approach. I had a loved one in Emory Hospital, and I always loved it when they would come in because it'd be like half a dozen of them walk in to talk about it. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting some service here. This is pretty good. I have 4 docs looking at this. It's not a bad deal, you know. So, well, that's kind of the same thing. It's a team approach. We're all looking at it. As far as payer sources, who pays the bills? Who pays hospice? Well, Medicare, Medicaid, primary. There's private insurance, and we also accept charity patients. I don't know about any other hospice because I don't work for them. I don't know what they do. I know we set aside money in our budget every year, and every year we serve patients that, well, maybe they're too young for Medicare, and maybe they actually have made too much money over the past years for Medicaid to kick in. So they're in that in-between stage. What are they going to do? Well, they never get a bill from us. Never, ever. We don't send people bills. That is not what happens. We have part of our budget set aside just to take care of people that we consider them indigent. Now, they may not be indigent. They may not be on the streets, but we've taken care of people on the streets, too. They were living in a hotel room provided by a church or something and given pot pies and a little microwave to eat, and that's all they had because they were destitute. And they would come and we'd put them in the inpatient unit and take care of them. We can't take care of everybody like that, but we can do some. And to those some, it makes a world of difference. So anyway, I want to open it up for questions. I hope, I brought my but once it's 12:30, is that too long? Okay. Because Sherry, Sherry knew she was getting in trouble when she asked me to do this, but she didn't feel good, so she didn't have a choice. And they get on to me when I pray over the food and I start praying for the nations or something. So y'all forgive me if I'm gone too long. But are there any questions? Because that was just like machine gun, bam, bam, bam. Way, a lot of information.
No question.
Yes.
The inpatient thing. So when you determine that a family member probably needs care, so you go through the doctor first. The doctor refers it to hospice.
Right.
Okay, so then who determines that they go inpatient or the services come to the home?
Okay. There's several factors that play in this, but the main thing we're looking at is their home a safe environment? We have had people where it's truly not a safe environment. Maybe, like I said, we serve people sometimes that don't have money, and you walk in and you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they're living like this. You know, holes in the floor from work that needs to be done, and because someone got sick, it never got finished, and we're like, no, don't send them home. Don't send them to the home. Let's put them in the inpatient unit, and we can see if we can have some community resources to get the hole in the floor fixed. And you know, something like that's real simple. It's kind of a no-brainer, but most of the time, it has to do with what are their symptoms? Can their symptoms be managed at home? If their symptoms can be managed at home, we want them to stay at home. Hospice was designed, when it first came to this country, it was designed as something that took care of people in their home. Because the truth is, most of us don't want to let go of our final breath in a hospital room where they're coming to check your blood every few hours and running tests continually, and you hear the beeps and the sound, and they're buffing the floors outside. I've spent more than one night in a hospital with someone, and 4 o'clock in the morning they decide to buff the floors because it's when they can. Well, that means if you're in a hospital, you're getting no rest. And so, I mean, anybody here who's ever been there, you know you're not getting rest. You go home to get rest finally. But sometimes people's symptoms, it's really beyond what we can manage at the house. Bring them into the inpatient unit, find out what medication regimen is going to keep them comfortable. Most of the time, comfortable is almost code words for, are they out of pain? That is our primary goal, and which is why morphine is used. It is a very effective pain management tool. Along with, it helps people, if they get anxious and they start breathing, the morphine allows their respiratory system to relax so they can catch their breath. You know, most people don't know that about morphine. They think it's just, oh my goodness. No, it actually helps you breathe. And so they feel calm. They begin to be in very minor pain, or hopefully none at all. And we go, okay, let's go home. Let's try to work this thing now at the house. But as someone gets real close to death, sometimes their symptoms are not manageable at the house. Sometimes they are. And sometimes we just have to beef up the staffing and be there more often towards that time of their life. Because, I mean, if I had my choice, I would rather be with my family in a comfortable environment that I'm familiar with. You know, I'll be 58 this year. But truthfully, thinking about the last days is always on my mind. Part of where I work and part of the fact I'm 58 years old. And I'm seeing the road shorter in front of me than it is behind me. So that's just a reality of life. But I would rather be at home around loved ones, you know. And if my kids aren't there, I'm going to disinherit them. But anyway. So.
How large of an area are you? I mean, I know you're Middle Georgia, but I mean, how far do you go?
I should be able to tell you how many counties. I think we serve 10. I think it's a 10-county area. I don't want to be quoted on that, so edit that from the tape. Thank you. But it's about a 10-county area. I know as far north as we go is North Macon. We don't go into Monroe County, and it's measured by counties, and it's also measured by miles. We have to, if we get a call saying, Mama needs some help, we have to be there in an hour. We have an hour. Now, bless their hearts, those people who live in Atlanta. You can be 5 miles down the road from where you're going, and it takes an hour depending on the time of day. So I don't know how they get around that regulation, but regulations and what governs us is really Medicare and Medicaid, because that's what, they have the biggest hoops to jump through. If we can jump through all their hoops, we're good with everybody else, because they make it real tight. You got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. So, and that's just the way it is, since they are our primary payer source. Most people do have Medicare and Medicaid that we're serving. We do not just serve an elderly population, though. We had someone in the inpatient unit recently, hadn't had his 30th birthday yet. So what do you do with that? But yes.
If the person is at home, who provides the bed, the special bed, or any special equipment?
Okay, now that's part of the hospice benefit. Once hospice comes in, whether it's private insurance, Medicare or Medicaid, or here again, if we're paying the bill ourselves, if it's a charity patient, we contract with medical equipment companies that bring that bed in there. Here again, once someone comes on our hospice, they do not get a bill. If they need oxygen in the home, if they need the bed in the home, if they need whatever supplies they may need. Now, there are some supplies that someone says, well, we don't want to use those. We really want those pull-ups over there. Well, then I think Walmart's got them for $12.99. You can hurry back. We don't say it like that. I'm being funny now. But, I mean, we provide what we can provide. If it's over and above that, but if it's what's needed for their care, we will provide it. But sometimes what we provide, someone goes, no, I want to step above that. Well, then you can, of course, But when it comes to what they really need, then we got that covered. All the medications that's related to their diagnosis. Someone says, well, this person's been on vitamin D for 25 years and y'all aren't going to provide the vitamin D. It's hard to tell someone that vitamin D is not going to do them much good right now. That's hard to hear because the family's in the process of slowly letting go, and some of them aren't ready to let go. When am I going to be ready to let go? When is any of us going to be ready to let go? Some people are tremendously at peace with that, but most are not. And so it's very difficult to tell a family, these meds are really not needed right now. And so you can just, and they go, no, they're on hospice. I want y'all to pay for that. That's it's a tough conversation. And so that's why some people say, I don't know how y'all do it. Because we're trying to have conversations and tell someone, this isn't really going to do them any good. That's hard. Because you're dealing with people who love other people and you're trying to tell them, you're saying it's hopeless? No, it's never hopeless. As a chaplain, I go in, I'll ask someone, what's the most important thing to you right now? Or what if I could pray one thing for you, what can I pray for you? They'll go, well, I want to live. I think I'll partner with you with that. I will absolutely partner with you. And this gets in now. You're gonna hear the preacher in me just right now. Jesus said, I've come to give life and give it more abundantly. And I don't care if you're 59, 69, 89, 99. If you want to live, I will pray with you about that. Then let's pray for life. Let's pray for recovery. There was this guy that I know that walked on water and healed people and actually raised a few of them from the dead. We're aware of that. And faith tells me I can absolutely pray with you. And I've had people say, don't you think you're giving them false hope? Anytime I turn to the Lord and ask a question for some help, I don't think that's false hope. Now, I don't carry God in my hip pocket, and I'm scared of people who think they do. But I can always ask the question. God's done stranger things than help someone recover that the doctors gave up on. Stranger things have happened. So absolutely, I'll pray with them. And then I have gone and I'll say, what can I pray with you for? And then, don't you pray for me to stay here. I'm ready to go. My husband's waiting on me, and so is Jesus. Don't you mess with me. Yes, ma'am. Good. You won't have any problem from this chaplain. And I'm just, and it's kind of a funny moment, and the family's back there snickering because they know she's been ready to go for 10 years now because she lost her husband 15 years ago, and she's been lonely ever since. She wants to be reunited with her husband. She knows he's in heaven. She knows she's going, so don't no one mess with her. She's just tired of this, and she's actually angry at God because she's still here. Okay, don't know what to do about that. And I've gone to see the same patient month after month. And I'll say, what's on your mind? Why am I still here? Ma'am, that's above my pay grade. I don't know. I can't answer that question. someone's just kind of ready. What do you do with that? I'm thinking, dear Lord, I hope I'm ready when the time comes. I mean, I really do. I don't want my kids to have, I don't want them to have all this angst and anxiety and all this stuff. I want them to look at their daddy and go, yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be. That's a good one, Daddy. That's the dad in me talking. I want them to, I always want a thumbs up for my kids. I want them to look at me and go, that's the way I want to do it. I want to be the example for them. I want to be ready. I want to be peaceful. And thank the Lord, if I'm on hospice, hopefully I'll be out of pain, whatever that may be. But anyway, kind of weird talking when you start talking about yourself like that. Anybody else? I know I ramble.
I don't know whether you know of anything, but are there support groups for the caregivers? A long time when my husband passed away, they had a thing called Make Today Count.
Right.
I have not seen anything around, but sometimes the caregivers just to go and share with other caregivers.
We have actually had that. It's been several years since we've done that, simply because, and here's the reality about being a caregiver, it's tough to get away to even do something like that. And most of the care that caregivers get is after the fact, after someone's passed, and it's usually through the bereavement care that all the issues that they had through caregiving, all that fatigue and stress kind of comes out. But I do not know of any places like that. I'm sure there are, but we used to do something called Caring for the Caregiver, a support group just for that, but the attendance just dropped off so bad. There was just nobody that was interested anymore, and that's because they were caregiving, and it's just hard to break away.
Excuse me.
No, you go right ahead. That's all right.
This is my
So,
calling.
but that is a good question. Here again, caregiving is the toughest thing you'll ever do, ever, bar none. You can get audited by the IRS and it won't be as tough as caregiving. I'm sorry. Picking on you again there. So.
Okay.
Was that?
I think that's...
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. It's been very informative. I think you shared with us some stuff that none of us were aware of. And I know a lot of people had some questions, who paid for the thing, and you certainly answered that question. And so we really appreciate it. It was very eye-opening. And I'll let Sherry know you did a good job.
Thank you so much. And just tell her I am not one that prepares a whole meal. I'm like the disciples after Jesus spoke. They picked up pieces of broken bread. I have pieces of broken bread. I'll just give you what I got. So.
Okay, we really appreciate it. Larry, you want to come give your legislative update? This probably won't be as upbeat as your talk was when we're talking legislation.
I just have a few items I want to talk about. I've discovered something in the last almost 18 months now, that when I go home in the afternoon and about 2 o'clock or 2:30, and I get in the lounge chair and have the TV on the normal news programs, I can't go to sleep. So I decided to switch to something else, and I switched to the Judges. That's hilarious, but it's the best sleeping pill you'll find. So if you want to get a good afternoon nap, turn the Judges on. There's one that's called Hot Bench. That's and that one is quite exciting for about 30 seconds. Okay, as you all know, we're having the great debates. It's kind of like somebody said they went to went to a boxing match night before last, and all of a sudden they started playing hockey. Well, you go to a TV program, and all of a sudden there's a debate there, and they become quite ad nausea on that. So they've been consuming a lot of the energy out of Capitol Hill, and I won't go into any great detail about that, but you know that as one candidate says the system is rigged, the other said, "You're right, we rigged it." So it's as I said, it's hilarious sometimes, but sad in the end of the day. On the 22nd of March, the House Ways and Means Social Security Subcommittee held a hearing on Social Security and public employees ensuring equal treatment. That was the result of a bill that was introduced by Kevin Brady, representative out of Texas. Basically, what the bill entitled the Equal Treatment of Public Servants Act of 2015, House Resolution 711, is to try to get rid of some of the disparity of the windfall elimination provision. I'm not sure how many of you are impacted by that, but that's where if you draw an annuity from the federal government, you have to have an offset in your Social Security if you have worked and earned Social Security credit. And for many people, that's a considerable number of dollars that they have to give up. Well, this 711, which is not asking for repeal of the windfall elimination provision, but to reduce the penalty for future Social Security benefit payments. And if it's enacted, it will begin in 2017. And for those who turned age 62 before 2017, the amount of reduction in the penalty would be determined by the Social Security Administration actuaries. I hate to use this number, but somewhere around 50% is what some of the advocates are saying on that. So if you are currently incurring say a $500 penalty, it may be reduced by $250. And for individuals who turn 62 during or after 2017, they will replace the penalty with a new formula. Basically, that's what the law would require, is a new formula on that. NARFE Legislative Department is keeping track on this, and as we get any additional information, I'll share that with you. The House Budget Committee approved the House Fiscal 2017 budget by 20-16 vote in a markup session on the 16th of March. The budget text was released on the 15th of March, but the accompanying report and additional specifics were not released until the 24th. And I think that's typical of what's going on there on Capitol Hill today. In order to try to convince the constituents that the lawmakers are doing something, they'll start an action, and then they'll delay it, and then they'll come back and take it up. But I think that right now we can all rest assured that nothing earth-shaking is going to occur until at least after the party conventions later in the year. And those might be very interesting to watch too, like the gladiators at the Coliseum. As you all know, it's quite a circus out there right now with the campaign. Some saying, you need to quit and let me win. Others saying, I'm not going to quit and you can't win. It's a circus. Okay, a part of the budget is calling for a increase in retirement contributions for all current federal employees. Another provision would be a 10% reduction of the federal civil service civilian workforce through attrition. That means that for every three that leave the service, one could be hired. And I think most of us would probably agree that we could do that without skipping a beat many times, because I know you look at what's there today, You got 4 or 5 people doing the job that one person used to do. So it's
At a higher grade.
at a higher grade, and some of them are even SESs. I know that for sure. Okay, they also have a couple of bills introduced that are called the Federal Adjustment Income Rates, or FAIR. And one of those is Senate Bill 2699, and that was introduced by Senators Barbara McCluskey and Benjamin Cardin and Sherrod Brown. It would provide a 5.3% across-the-board pay increase for federal employees in 2017. And that's greater, much greater than the President's proposal of 1.6% increase.
But Larry, that doesn't mention.
Hold on just a minute, please. The House has a similar bill on the floor, or in committee. It's 4585. It was introduced by Representative Gerald Connolly from Virginia. Now, of course, I have to tell you a little about Mr. Connolly. He is right there almost inside the Beltway. So all of his constituents are federal employees. So naturally, he's going to do everything to take care of them. He's calling for across the board 3.9% pay raise for 2017, with an additional 1.4% allotted for locality pay adjustments. So either way you look at it, they are both asking for a 5.3% pay raise. The February COLA kind of sealed the fate on COLAs for this year. It wasn't enough of an increase to give us any hope there. Of course, as they always do, Congress went on recess from the 24th of March through the 11th of April. Back home doing district work and campaigning and collecting donations to get reelected. On the table back there, I've got a couple of articles that I wrote, and you're welcome to take them with you. One of them is called Voter Crossroads, and this is a kind of a takeoff on Thomas Sorrell. He's a senior fellow at the Hoover Institute of Sanford University. And he wrote this op-ed entitled Voting at a Crossroads. It's quite interesting because in that he tells how things are evolving today to become a real Armageddon as far as voting and democracy is concerned. And he said, the voters are at a crossroad, and our future and our children's future depend on whether we can nominate a presidential candidate better than Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. It's his contention that although the nation has in other times and other conditions survived a bad president, there is no guarantee the nation can survive an unlimited amount of reckless decisions in a dangerous world. He goes on to talk about how our adversaries around the world are getting stronger against us and ready to take over if the opportunity avails itself. But he says Sorrell does not believe that either front runner is the right candidate to occupy the White House. In the op-ed, he stated that charismatic leaders who articulate the just grievances of the people have often risen to power on the basis of that talent alone. In other words, their golden tongue has gotten them into their power. He goes on to say, those who put them in power are often paid a catastrophic price afterwards. So I think that's fair warning for all of us to really look at who we are voting for, whether it's at the local level or at the national level. The other one is entitled Developing a Relationship. Now, I've talked about this for many years now. The way that we deal with our politicians, our lawmakers, is very, very critical. And everybody has their way of dealing with them. But the thing is that you're not going to deal with them at all until you reach out and try to establish that relationship with them. And I pointed out in this article some of the ways that have been very successful for me. I've achieved a lot of success by using these and always practicing them. So they're on the table back there, and you're welcome to them. People quite often will ask me, where is a good source to get good information? Well, I'm going to give you one today that I think is one of the best available. I don't know how many of you have ever known or paid any attention to Larry Sabato from the University of Virginia. He's a political science professor there, and I think he's probably the most down the middle of the road that you'll find. He publishes what he calls Sabato's Crystal Ball at least once a week, and they're always filled with very good information. And Larry uses numbers and statistics to back up what he says or what he predicts. So if you want to write it down, it's http www.centerforpolitics.org/crystalball. You can subscribe to that, and he will send you on the internet every week.
Say that again. Here, I'll put it in the minutes too.
I could go on forever, but Lynn would kick me on the shins up here, so I'll sit down, and if anybody has any questions, I'll be around for another few minutes, and then I got to scoot out for a webinar.
Okay, thank you. And as you can see, there's a lot going on. There will be a lot more going on with election coming up.